My name is Oyedamola Shuola, and I am the co-founder of SprinNG. To kickstart this event, I want to quickly talk to you about the SprinNG Advantage Program, because this event you're joining today is not just an event, it's the beginning of a journey for you. The SprinNG Advantage Program is intended for African writers aspiring to pursue an MFA program, which is a Master's of Fine Arts in Creative Writing. Following this event, if you're interested, we have a 5 weeks program plan for you, which is going to be virtual, and you'll get support to edit your application materials for MFA programs that you're interested in pursuing and applying to. I will pass it on to Kanyinsola Olorunnisola now, but I'm going to read his bio briefly for you. Kanyinsola Olorunnisola is the host of today's event and is the interviewer of our panelists. He's an experimental writer of Yoruba descent. His works explore Black realities, the diverse ways his people navigate the world. You can find his works in Al Jazeera, Paya, Popular, Harvard University's Transition, and elsewhere. He's a recipient of the 2023 AWP Intro Journals Award for Creative Nonfiction, 2023 Don F. Hendry Jr. Prize in Fiction, 2020 Speculative Literary Foundation Diverse Writers Grant, 2020 K&L Prize for African Literature, 2022 Outright Chapbook Prize, 2022 Best of the Net Anthology Inclusions, and a Truman Capote Literary Trust Scholarship, among others. He has published 2 books, one in My Country, We're All Cross-Dressers by Practice Magazine, 2018, and Shakespeare in the Ghetto, in 2023, coming out this 2023. He is the MFA candidate and, he is an MFA candidate at the University of Alabama, where he's currently working on a voodoo-inspired novel. Welcome, Kanyinsola, and I'm going to pass it to you.
Thank you very much, Owen. Can I get everyone else's videos on, please? So, I see their beautiful faces. Hello, everyone. My name is Kanyinsola Olorunnisola. I'm the co-founder of SprinNG, a leading literary platform with a specific focus on the advancement of young African writers. I'm currently a third-year student in the MFA program at the University of Alabama, and I'm delighted to welcome you all to this event this morning or evening, depending on where you are. So the purpose of this event is to discuss the MFA program, right? Its role in African literature today, and the experiences of African writers who have been within the system. I'm joined today by 4 brilliant panelists, all of whom I feel honored to introduce to you. So the first panelist we have is Adedayo Agarau. Adedayo is a 2023 Fellow of the Wallace Stegner Fellowship at Stanford University, a 2022 Robert Hayden Scholarship Fellow, and a recipient of the 2022 Stanley Awards for International Research at the University of Iowa. He obtained his MFA at the Iowa Writers Workshop. His poems have been featured in Poetry Magazine, Poetry Society of America, World Literature Today, Tab Journal, Anomaly, Frontier, Iowa Review, Boulevard, and elsewhere. He is the author of the chapbooks Origin of Names from African Poetry Book Fund and The Arrival of Rain from Vegetarian Alcoholic Press. Adedayo is editor-in-chief of Agbowo, an African magazine of literature and art. Welcome, Adedayo. The next panelist is Ucheoma Onwutuebe. Ucheoma is a Nigerian writer. She is the recipient of the 2022 Wasnode Fiction Prize and has received residencies from Yado, Art Omi, and the Anderson Center. Her works have appeared in Catapult, Bellevue Literature Review, Passages North, Press Schooner, Off Assignment, Backward Magazine, and elsewhere. She is currently an MFA student at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. Welcome, Ucheoma.
Hi.
The next panelist is Iquo DianaAbasi. Iquo writes prose, poetry, and scripts for radio and screen. She performs her poetry with Ibibio Folklore. Her poetry collections, Symphony of Becoming in 2013 and coming undone as Teachers Titan in 2022, have been nominated for the NLNG Prize for Literature. She has also been longlisted for the Wole Soyinka Prize for Literature and the Association of Nigerian Authors Poetry Prize. She is the author of Eforiro and Other Stories, released in 2020. Iquo edits the African speculative fiction magazine Omenana.com and is presently a graduate student at the University of Alabama. Roll Tide. Welcome, Iquo. Our last panelist is Nkiacha Atemnkeng. Nkiacha is a writer from Cameroon. His work was published in the 2015 King Prize anthology, Lusaka Punk and Other Stories, Hotel Africa, New Short Fiction from Africa, Of Passion and Ink, New Voices from Cameroon by Bakwa Books, as well as the Africa Report, This is Africa, the Johannesburg Review of Books, The Guardian, Long Reads, Porterhouse Review, among others. He is the Goethe Institute Stilt Foundation Writing Residency winner and a 2021 Art Army Fellow in New York. Nkiacha earned his MFA in Creative Writing from Texas University, where he is currently employed as a faculty member teaching college writing courses. Welcome, Nkiacha.
Thanks.
So I'm so excited to have all of you here. This has been weeks in the making, and I'm just glad we're all able to make it. So before we go on to ask, the important questions, we hit 100 participants. Okay, let's keep it coming. I would like us to just start with a very quick icebreaker, which is discuss what we are reading currently. And I have mine right here. I know you weren't expecting the question, but I've been reading Teju Cole, Known and Strange Things, because I'm obsessed with Teju Cole and his essays, and that has been helping me with my thesis currently. So passing it out to you guys, what are you reading right now?
I'm currently reading I'm a Fan by Sheena Patel. I'm currently obsessed with novels that are very short, like novels that have very short chapters and that are very fluffy, those kind of things that MFA writers hate. So yeah, that's what I'm currently reading.
Nkiacha?
Okay. Not reading anything at the moment, like right now. But the last book I finished reading is a novel by a Francophone Cameroonian novelist called Him Liboum. The title of the novel is Les Jours Viennent et Passent. The English translation is Days Come and Go, and it was translated by Bakwa Books.
Nice. Adedayo.
Yeah, I'm currently reading Yiyun Lee's The Book of Goose, and I'm actually fascinated by, like Ucheoma said, actually. The book actually has a range of short chapters, and of course, sentences impeccable. I'm fascinated by sentences, and she writes really weird stories, and I really love them. So yes.
Thank you, Dayo. Iquo?
Yeah, so I'm currently reading, or like rereading Kindred. It's by Octavia Butler.
Oh, I love
I
Yeah.
love Kindred.
I'm just so excited by her capacity, her ability to capture a time when she obviously was not alive,
We read it in one of our classes last semester. It was very good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was
so
already
too.
2 semesters ago. So it happens to be on several syllabuses. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so guys, thank you for sharing what you're reading. There's some of the books you mentioned I hadn't heard of before. I'll make sure to note them. So now to go on to the actual questions, right? So you're all in such prestigious programs, right? We have Dayo in Iowa, Nkiacha in Texas State, or was in Texas State, Iquo in Alabama, and Ucheoma in Vegas. So I'd like you to talk to us about what led you to apply to your respective programs, like why those programs and why did you choose them?
Do I go first?
Yeah, yes, please.
Okay. For me, it was mostly a gamble because honestly, when you're in Nigeria, you want to cast your net as widely as possible, and you would go wherever you're accepted. So I applied 2 times. In 2020, I didn't get into the programs that I liked. And in 2021, I got into Vegas. And Miami University, Oxford, Ohio. So I had these two options to go to a very cold place or a very warm place. And Vegas, being Vegas, was just a better option than going to Ohio. So that was why I picked Vegas, not for anything serious, but just because of the weather and the possibility of living in a city.
Yeah. Thank you. So, Nkiacha?
Yeah, for me, it's it's interesting, Ucheoma, that you chose the whole net metaphor. Again, as an MFA student back home, you're casting your net as wide as you can, and anything that catches, you grab that fish. Well, for me, it was kind of that, and also because Texas State admitted me, but also I was kind of lucky in a way where, and again, we can speak about this later, where my admissions, even my application procedures were kind of made easier than so many other schools. At the time, I was in Germany doing residency and I wanted to apply. And then again, my TOEFL expired. Many of these MFA programs require TOEFL. So I emailed the coordinator of my program, Stan Rifkin, and I was like, hey, I want to apply to this MFA, but my TOEFL is expired. I don't know if I can use that. It was like 2 days to the deadline. I just read, I did it like right at the end. And then he said, hey, if you have like published work, there's no need. I can write to the graduate or college and they'll waive your TOEFL for you. And I was like, oh, okay. And then the fact that his response was like personalized and like very quick. I was like, oh, many other MFAs I've applied to, they send like these very generic email responses. And then, but Stan Rifkin personalized it. I was like, there's something over there. And then again, the University of Boy in Cameroon, where I studied, it's a 3-year program. It's not like Nigeria. It's an Anglo-Saxon university, but it's a 3-year program. And sometimes in the US, they reject those. So I was also worried about them rejecting my 3-year degree. So I got to the graduate college and they were like, hey, did you do the Cameroon educational system? Did you do the whole Anglophone system thing in Cameroon where it's like the GC advanced level, like in the UK? I was like, yeah. And then I sent my certificate. I was like, fine. And then I was worried about the school also asking for a translation of my transcript, because they do that to some of the schools. And they're like, no, we're not doing the West thing. It's okay. You can just send in your transcript. No translation, nothing like that. So I did that. It was like super easy. And then Stan Rifkin was really hands-on with all the responses to all the questions I had. So I was like, you know what? I'm going there. Also, San Marcos it's a 40-minute drive away from Austin. It's 2.5 hours from Houston. It's 1 hour from San Antonio. So it's a small college town, which is like in the middle of 3 huge towns. So I was like, okay, I'll just go. Yeah. So I ended up here.
Yeah, I think it's difficult enough navigating, these systems, but then when 2 languages are involved, it can be another thing entirely. Dayo?
Well, hearing Nkiacha actually talk about Texas State actually reminded me of my experience with Texas State. I got into Texas State in 2020 and I was supposed to go there, but I could not go because, of course, I had an HND, and then they had already accepted me and all of those. But the graduate school was like, oh, we can't take it, blah, blah. And so. And then, of course, the second year, I think I only applied to Texas State that year because somebody actually like shared it with me to actually apply, right? So in the fall of 2020, I applied to like everybody else. I applied to several schools, and then I got lucky to actually like get into about 4 of the 5 schools that I applied to, except Brown. And then because Iowa is Iowa, of course, I had to come to Iowa actually. So yes. So I choose Iowa because Iowa is Iowa. I don't know if people actually got the context, but yes, Iowa is the best MFA programs in the world. So
well,
I actually did not apply to Iowa because of Iowa being Iowa, because I wanted a place where I could create freely and just be happy and, wear clothes and just live a life that is outside that, restriction to create. So that was why I despised Iowa. Yeah.
I'll refrain from giving my own opinions, but let's go.
That's too much pride coming through. Too much pride. Hold it in. Yeah, so why did I apply to Alabama? I had a list of schools I was looking at, and someone mentioned University of Alabama, and I said, okay, let me go through their website and see what they have. Actually didn't really have, it wouldn't have been my first choice. There were other schools that I thought I wanted to go to. And then when eventually I got into those schools, I was sitting down and asking myself, what do I really want to do with this MFA? And so the biggest reason why I chose Alabama is the fact that I get to have teaching experience. So I personally want to be able to teach. Yes, I have done workshops in Nigeria. I have taught young people creative writing. I have done poetry workshops, short story workshops, but I wanted to learn a different kind of teaching and just be exposed to that. And the other school I wanted to go to didn't have undergrads, so I wouldn't get to teach, even though, I really wanted to go to that school because whatever. I just thought this would give me what I want, the MFA experience plus teaching. Like, it's a really, that was a big decider for me. I mean, aside from the fact that the funding was full. So yeah. And then I like the fact that Alabama is a community that is not so cold. It's not as cold as the cities in the north. It's a big deal for me. I'm a very bush girl. I get cold easily. I'm very, very, very proudly bush Nigerian ABBO girl. I don't like the cold.
Well, thank you very much, guys. Iquo, I'm glad you mentioned that you asked yourself why this MFA. And I think yours is it's a rather interesting situation, right? Because you already have several books, you've been on the NLNG list several times. And for many people thinking of, even not most people, thinking of going for MFA programs, they think, yeah, I want to get published someday, I want to get the right connections to kickstart my career. But for you, you kind of came into your program with your career already established. So I guess that just begs the question, was it just because of the teaching? What did you think the MFA was going to do for you in particular that you couldn't have done, say, back home?
So the MFA gives you different things. It's I think some people have the idea that in the MFA you're going to learn how to write. I don't think that's true. Which is why you are accepted based on your writing skill. And sometimes it feels like, coming from Africa, you have to write so well, so much better than your contemporaries in your class, which I don't think is a bad thing.
So you have to write better.
Yes, but the thing is, so you know how to write, whether you've been published or not. I think it's always exciting to get to meet and learn new things, which for me, I'm very happy to do in this MFA program. There's also the fact that even if you've been published in Africa, when you're out here, there's more opportunity. And that's something that there's no shame in that. Getting more opportunities. It's not really about wanting to outshine, but what's the point of winking if you're in the dark? So you want to go out there, get more opportunity, meet other writers. And sometimes for me, it's also been a matter of getting to read books that I probably wouldn't have heard about, or even hear about writers I probably wouldn't have heard about without having come to the MFA program. And I know that for different syllabuses, the books are different. The subjects you're learning are different, but I just love the idea of exploring new things. So in my mind, it's more, and I'm just soaking it all up, So yeah, an MFA program gives you that opportunity, and I'm happy for that. Like I said, for me, it's not just also it's not just exploring my writing, it's also the fact that I want to teach. So I've done many things. I've worked as an editor. I still am an editor. I've written different kinds of literature. I've worked as a performer. I am a performer, but I also want to teach, and I want to do it not just with the limited knowledge I have, but with as much knowledge as possible. How do you get this if not, being exposed to that experience and also learning from new kinds of lecturers? I don't know about the rest of you, but there was a class I took. It was a literature class, and this was my first time doing a literature class. And we were just discussing theories and all that. I remember asking a question, and then the professor said, oh, you're from Nigeria, right? Don't worry. Our grading system is not like it. I've heard about grading systems in Nigeria, and I'm like, who sent you? But our gist has gone for how it is, and so it's just so wonderful meeting different kinds of professors and professors that you feel are your contemporaries that you can discuss with. Not somebody that will ask you, do you know how I became a professor? Do you know what it took to become a doctor? No. So yes, it's just that whole experience. It's new, it's refreshing. And I guess at the end of the day, it would give me the kind of balance that would make me a better writer and teacher. And I decided to do that, yeah.
Thank you so much, Iquo. I'm really glad you mentioned anything about, professors, because I remember back in my undergrad, even though I did speak a lot in class, I didn't feel entirely comfortable doing it, because you always felt like, what was it, disrespect? But here, especially in MFA programs, you kind of have to talk. So like talking is part of the dynamic. And that's wonderful. And I'm also glad you mentioned something about opportunities, right? And I'd just like to ask, everyone else, what opportunities would you say you have benefited from since you started your MFA programs? And for those of you who are done rather, what opportunities did you benefit from that you wouldn't have been able to if you weren't in MFA programs?
I think for me, I would say the access to books, because the library in my school and in most schools in the States are very well equipped. And back then in Nigeria, I had to rely on, pirated PDF copies to keep abreast with literature. But here you just walk in and you just have this, a big library of books, and sometimes you can't even finish. You can't satisfy yourself enough because it's just too much. And books have always been the foundation of my writing, and having unbridled access to it is just something I wouldn't trade for anything else.
Thank you, Ucheoma. Nkiacha?
Is it about the opportunities question?
Opportunities, yes.
Yeah. Well, I teach right now, and I'll not be able to teach if I hadn't, done an MFA. So, and I wouldn't teach creative writing in Cameroon if I hadn't, we don't even do creative writing courses in Cameroon. So the teaching is, an opportunity I have, just able to be fulfilling, to be able to, help, or, just young students be able to improve their craft too. Obviously, the library, like Ucheoma said, I remember the first time I saw a library at Texas State, the thing was big. It was as big as the Douala Airport where I used to work in Cameroon. And I was like, wow, this is cool. And yeah, just the opportunity to attend all the things. I got invited for a residency, and I was rejected a visa to attend, but because I was attending the MFA, I was able to attend that, a couple of years later. I mean, it's just other things too. I don't like, it didn't happen for me personally, even agents, there's some agents that when they hear that you're in the US, you're in an MFA, that's when they sign you up. Not that when you're in Nigeria or Cameroon, they cannot sign you, but because they're thinking, oh, if he gets it, oh, he or she, or they get a book deal, oh, they have to go and look for visa now to come to the US, and they may reject them a visa. Oh, who pay for that flight for them to come and do a book tour in Miami or in Alabama? So there are all of those things too. So being here and studying here also just gives you access to other stuff like that.
Yeah, and by the way, just to the audience, Nkiacha has 2 lovely essays about the visa process, if I remember correctly. There's Longreads, right?
The Guardian Longreads, yeah.
Okay, the Guardian. Okay, yeah, Guardian Longreads. And you guys should definitely check it out. It's very, very helpful. And I see that we're getting a lot of Q&As, but the Q&As, if it wasn't mentioned before, will come toward the end. So I can see we have a lot of questions, but I'll get to them, I promise, in case you're wondering why I haven't asked your questions yet. So Dayo, about the opportunities.
So yeah, I think that I'm actually one of the major things I'm actually grateful for is the access to editors, professors who are also editors. I've worked with Tracy Morris, Elizabeth Willis, and outside of the program, I've worked with several several others who have been very kind enough through the fact that, oh, my professor actually like just recommended, asked me to reach out to somebody because they've told them about me, and then they wanted me to actually like work on a particular poem, or and also away from that, they also like the MFA itself actually like just gives you the time to actually like just focus on your writing, and that's actually I think is key. You know, apart from every other important things that my fellow panelists have actually like mentioned, time that the MFA actually gives you to focus on your craft is key. Is sort of like the most important thing that it actually offers you. Whether you have great professors who are actually like committed to your writing or not, what you have that is sure banker is the fact that you have time to personally like, you know, devote to your writing. And I think, yeah.
Sorry, there's someone honking outside. So thank you for that, Dayo. And you also mentioned something about having time to write. And I know a lot of people are always thinking, what exactly do you do in MFA programs? What's the structure like? So I want you guys to walk me through your program. What's it like being there? What are the classes like? What's the camaraderie between among, you know, the students? If I were coming to your program, what should I expect? Just walk me through, say, a week in your program. What's it like? Anyone can go first.
I can start. Do you want the old truth and nothing but the truth?
Oh yes, please.
Okay, so you're welcome to Iowa, University of Iowa. Actually, unlike what my friend Ucheoma actually said, Iowa actually gives you the time to the space, the freedom to actually like create however you want to create, whatever it is that works for you. Iowa does not entirely like force you to actually like attend seminars. Iowa does not say you have to like, you know, pass certain courses. However, the structure is on Mondays for poetry, you attend a workshop. That is very important. A workshop is actually where you come to actually like, you know, discuss about other people's works, which I think that is one of the things that I actually like really enjoy. I enjoy talking about other people's work. They also talk about your work, which I do enjoy a lot, you know, but also you get insights from your professors about what you're currently working on. So it's like you're walking through a collection of poems or a collection of stories with other people being extra eyes to what you're doing, right? So and then on the flip side, I think that it's actually like if you're coming to Iowa, if you don't like to make friends, Iowa is probably the best place for you because you probably would not make a lot of friends as an African or as a Black person coming to, as particularly African, because black people as great here in Iowa. So you would not exactly like, you know, I know you're thinking, you're like, what's he talking about? Yeah. So there's there's quote unquote the disparity between, oh, is African, oh, is Black American, you know the dynamics of that. Away from that, you would actually really enjoy working with professors here because they're actually really kind. The faculty is very supportive, but the students not so much. So
What do you mean, Dayo?
Yeah, okay, so
No.
it's Iowa, so everybody's actually trying to like, you know, make it out of the ghetto of Iowa. Like by the time you're done with Iowa, you should probably like have been signed by an agent. So the program is actually like designed for you to succeed as a creator. However, the program actually like also like, so the structure of the program enables other people to actually like be very, very toxic in the way that they deal with people, in the way that they talk to people, the way that they make friends. A very brief experience was that nobody wanted to make friends with Adams and I. Adams is a Nigerian who writes fiction. Nobody wanted to make friends with Adam and I. And then I got stagnant at the tail end of the event of my program, rather. And I kept getting emails to hang out and drink coffee. And I'm like, I saw right through you guys right from the beginning of the semester. So yes, that's the dynamics of Iowa. I'm sure that other people have incredible experiences.
I think
Thank
my
you.
program is very anti-Iowa because everything, there's room to socialize. There's a lot of warmth. I call myself an evangelist of my program. There's a lot of warmth. There's a lot of support, even, and there's that the absence of this dog eats dog competition that happens in class. So a week in my program. What did you say?
I said Odumodu style, yes.
So a week in my program, if you come in this, you would work at the writing center in your first year, and in your second year, you would start teaching. But in my time, we started teaching from the very first week that we landed. So, but the structure has changed now. You would work at the writing center first before you start teaching. And the workshop is very fluid in the sense that if you are, nonfiction, but you can also take workshops in other genres. You can take forms classes in other genres, and you have to take 4 workshops before you graduate and take forms classes. Forms classes are just classes where you have to study books and discuss it and find out what the magic the writers that are working in the books and what else. Yeah. That's all I have to say.
Yeah. So in my
Roll
school, when you
Tide.
come in, Roll Tide, when you come into University of Alabama for the MFA program, you get to, either you teach in the writing center or you do some other thing, to satisfy your GTA, your graduate teaching assistantship. Then in the second year, you get assigned a class. So yeah, and working in the writing center for me gave me the experience of meeting my would-be students, for at least 2 semesters to see how it is they think, and just to prepare myself. Again, my classes, I don't even know, I'm yet to find one word to describe it. It's so exciting when you meet with different kinds of people, and everybody is so supportive of everybody's craft. Everybody understands that there's space for everyone. So whatever you're writing, whatever your style, there's support. And even when there's doing workshops, you're getting critiqued. It feels like it's with a lot of sensitivity and a lot of respect. And I really love that, because that means that even if I did not intend to be nice to a person, I then have to sit and think, okay, maybe what I've picked up from this story or poem they've written it wasn't intentional. Let me read it with less criticism, but be more sensitive. That's why I can even give more in-depth comments, about the work, right? So I like the fact that we're not competing, even when there's competition. For instance, sometimes, Connie can attest to this, you get to submit, everybody gets, who wants to submit, get to submit stories or poems or bits of nonfiction or a prize within the MFA program. It doesn't feel like it's competition, You're just all of you are just writers, different stages of your craft, growing, and I particularly love the fact that because the program is not 2 years, it's 3 years, even with an option of 4. You get to sit in class with people who've been doing this thing for much longer than you, and you don't feel like you're new if it's your first year. Sometimes you write something and people are reading your work and they're like, my goodness, I love the way you did this with this. I love the way you did this character. I love the way you went. I'm like, really? I'm thinking, that's normal now. Well, hey, and I realized that when I read their work, I also get to appreciate the fact that they are seeing things differently from the way I see things. And I don't feel threatened. I feel like, okay, this is a wide field. I'm free to explore. Then my classes are, apart from the workshops, in Alabama, you are free to choose what you want to do. So but there are just a few parameters. You are free to choose in the whole of the English department courses you wish to do. So that it's just that you must be careful not to do too many literature and then courses and leave out creative writing courses. So you have to strike that balance. And then you're also free to say, I came in for fiction, but I'm free to say for my final work, I'm free to do something that is hybrid, right? As long as I do it well. I can't explain how this has helped me, so that there's no boundary to say, you came in for fiction, you must do fiction. you came in for poetry, you must do poetry, so that, for instance, last semester, I took a course in hybrid memoir. So yeah, it was such a fascinating thing for me. And I've seen different kinds of hybrid memoir that exist out there in the world. And knowing that one day I can do something like that, maybe even more different with a bigger twist, because I'm a writer that does different kinds of writing. And then I did another course about writing historical fiction, even when you're not there, which is why I'm fascinated by Octavia Butler's Kindred, or even just writing fiction about a particular event, as a springboard. And it's historical, yet it is fictional. So just having that room to explore, I love that about my program, and the fact that when you're in workshops, or even we have form classes that they're like semi-workshop and semi-class. So even though you're reading a book and writing about the book, you, the students, get to also create your own work similar to that, if you can, or even something different, and then when I say similar to that, I don't mean like the book you're reading, but in the form, to think about that form, and you're challenging yourself with the form. That way, when everybody then gets to convene in class, we're also workshopping each other's work, and then seeing just the different possibilities that exist, So I love that. I think it's a very healthy kind of support that we have in Alabama, and it's respectful. And I love that, because I know that for many writers, the emotional stability is important to the creative process, because it's very easy for a creative person to become depressed. And I mean depressed in a way that the depression doesn't help your writing, and doesn't help your life either. So yeah, that's one of the things I really enjoy about my program.
Thank you very much, Iquo. Iquo already touched upon this, but I'm curious to know, like, for the rest of you, in what ways? Oh, sorry?
I haven't gone, no.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that I was getting distracted by the chat because we got an influx of chat messages. So I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Okay. Great. Anyway, I saw a lot of Iowa chats there while Adedayo was speaking and all. So kind of, again, I'll touch on kind of, I can say that it's kind of related to my program. There are I think we have 3 faculty who are Iowa grads. So it was kind of, the program was kind of structured with Iowa in mind, and I'll explain. The director of the program is Doc Dost. He attended Iowa in the, I think, in like the 80s or something. And then there's Tom Grimes, who's also an Iowa grad. He was the director of the program before Doc Dost. And then right now there's Jennifer Dubois. So I think especially with Doc Dost, what they did is they kind of, they wanted to kind of create an environment which would not, I can't say anti-Iowa, but kind of different from the Iowa field, where the students do not feel a lot of pressure with the competition and like the toxicity and then all of that. And just that brute, dog eat dog kind of a thing. So they kind of made it to be like laid back, but a mixture of like laid back and also serious, where there's that. And then Doc does especially try to make it where it's like, if like any like complaints of like someone trying to like bully another, it's dealt with like really deeply. And what I really like about the program, I think the best word for me is it's a French word. I don't know, the English word doesn't come to mind quickly. It's called polyvalent, but in English that would be polyvalent. Yeah, so it's just how diverse the courses are, where you're kind of, and again it's kind of serious in a way where you almost don't have time to write. And for me, I was doing it, sometimes like during the vacation. Now a week at Texas State, typically we had like so many different courses. Like for example, Doc Doss, who's a novelist, but also a TV, he's a script writer. He co-wrote the script for a series on Amazon Prime, about the wife of F. Scott Fitzgerald. The title of the series is Z, the Beginning of Everything. So, from his experience, he decided to do a TV writing course. And then in that TV writing class, we did a whole season 2 of Z, the Beginning of Everything, because the show was killed off after season 1. So we did that. And that was like a 3-hour slot on like a Tuesday. We're doing TV writing. And then there's like creative nonfiction with Tom Grimes, who's an Iowa grad, and then another professor called Deborah Monroe. So I did 2 creative nonfiction classes. And then for workshop, because I'm my specialty is fiction, I had 4 workshops. It's a 3-year program over a span of 3 years. So workshops are on Tuesdays for 3 hours, 6:30 to 9:30, where you get workshopped by peers in your class. I was among like the first batch of African students in my program. There were 3 of us, and then after us, a stellar batch of like Africans came through. So we're like 9-10 of us in that community right now. So on Tuesdays, we usually have this MFA bar called Zelix. We'll go and hang out after workshop. And the cool thing is your friends in your class, especially if you like write like a really good story, they'll buy you drinks. And I thought it was like really fun. I was like, oh, today you got workshop today, they'll buy, even if you write a bad story, they'll buy you drinks. Yeah, so there was that. And then also like when the other Africans, I also have like, and again, we'll speak about this later. I don't know if Kanyinsola have time for this, where it's like, the white Americans who don't know a lot about like the African aesthetic of storytelling. I had, that struggle a little bit. But with the Africans in the program who came later, I really had that community of, the other 9 Africans in San Marcos that I was able to just discuss my works with and stuff like that. And then for like your thesis, it's mostly fiction and poetry, but you can also do a creative nonfiction a thesis if you want in your final year. And the other thing for the week, which is not about writing, is that the first year you're an IA, instructional assistant. So you basically attend the classes that the professor teaches, and then you grade and then you answer students' emails or whatever. You don't teach. And then or you go through like a teaching practicum, and then your 2nd and 3rd years you actually do teach. And if you're lucky, you can also just teach a post-graduation on OPT and stuff like that. So it's a very, again, like I said in French, polyvalent kind of creative writing program, and it's very also rigorous in a way where you almost, unlike other MFA programs, we almost have to like try to find time to write, to the point where I had to like write sometimes during the vacation. But it was also very fulfilling. Of course, we also did 5 literature courses. I almost mentioned that we did 5 literature courses. So yeah.
Thank you very much, Nkiacha. Am I okay? I thought I was muted. So yeah, you just mentioned something about white Americans, and my next question was going in that direction. I'm curious, you guys, we all moved from, I think everyone here is from West Africa, right? We all moved here from West Africa to the US, and here you are in not just a different country, but a different continent entirely. And even though for some of you the language is the same, there's still some sort of barrier. And I'm just curious, was there something about being here in this cultural climate with regards to your writing that you felt like was a disservice to you? Do you feel like you lost something by being here? Was it your audience not relating to your work? Was it some sort of microaggression? Was it some professors, making certain comments about your work? I'm just curious. I feel like I know some of your personal stories. So I'm just curious to hear what's because so far I've been saying the good things, take any, you have agents and stuff like that. So what would you say is, the major drawback, or was the, what was the negative effects of you coming here?
I can go because I had a lot that happened to me, but it was generally positive. So first day in class, in workshop, and I've been sitting in class, again, first African students in the program. Professor looks at me. This is like an old white guy, like in his 70s. He looks at me, and then there's a Rwandan student like right behind me. She's from Rwanda. He looks at me. She's like, "What's a guy from Cameroon doing in Central Texas?" And I was like, "Well, I applied to the MFA program. They took me, so I came." And then I turned and looked at my Rwandan friend. I was like, "Why wasn't she singled out too?" And the same guy, he later told me, because I worked at an airport in Cameroon. I worked at Douala Airport. Douala is kind of, for those who don't know, Douala is like the economic capital, kind of big, wild, congested, like Lagos. That's our own like vision of Lagos. So I was writing a kind of a sort of like a long form things out of the airport, and then he was like, this same guy, he looks at me in one workshop, and he goes, "Well, airports are not an idiosyncrasy to Western citizens. Why would you say that your novel there?" And I was like, dude, are you crazy? Like, if you go to Lagos Airport or Douala Airport, the things you see in those places, you can write stuff. If nothing is happening in your airports, don't blame mine. Yeah, but for the biggest one for me is and again, I'm sure a lot of you relate to this. I wrote a story in workshop, completely wasted workshop. It wasn't, they were not ill-intentioned though, they just didn't know that concept. You know, like the whole idea of the undead. I think Kanyinsola is probably familiar with this story too, and those who attended some things I did. The undead, or the undead, where we find in like so many Nigerian stories. I mean, Pemi Aguda had a story with the undead premise. So I just wrote that I wrote a story where somebody who died and then came to life in San Marcos and then disappears, and then they figure out that the person had died like 2 years ago. So we're in a workshop, and the workshop kind of model is, the workshop P has to be like a fly on the wall, where you're just listening to everything that what people are saying, and then you don't kind of chime in at that point. So I'm just listening where people are like, oh, this character that Nkiacha, created, this character she's a ghost. No, she's not a ghost. No, she's a ghost. The whole workshop was like, she's not a ghost. She's a ghost. Oh, he's trying to write a ghost story. No, but he's trying to subvert the ghost story. So I just hearing ghost. And I came in at the end. I was like, look, that character is not dead. She's not a ghost. Yeah, she died. Yeah, but I mean, I'm not the first person to do this. A ton of people have done this before. Pemi Aguda, like, I forgot, like even like people from my Cameroon. There's actually names in African spirituality for this. The Yoruba call it Benem, the Ijagan people in Cameroon call it Akudaya, even the Soto people in Southern Africa call it Sikwane. And I mean, this is like a concept in like, so I felt, and then you could just feel like the kind of like artistic remorse in their faces, where they feel like they let me down, and they were kind of apologetic. Even the professor too didn't have a clue. And then I was like, I wish I had chimed in earlier to mention that this character was, yeah, she was dead, but she wasn't a ghost. It's just concept. So I felt like, maybe if you want to submit like a story in workshop, you might have to choose, wisely, to be able to, have the feedback that you need, or not explain the story, but like, it's like, okay, this concept is called the undead, and this person is not dead. Yeah, so that was, so I ended up having a wasted workshop. And then the last one for me, again, you will find some racist professors in MFA programs, and I had to deal with that. It was a very tough time for me. So I was learning again a course called Form and Theory. It's about like the history of narrative form. You're not doing books or like novels in this course. You're just doing the aesthetics, how those narratives started. How do we have like all those tropes you have like in like Hollywood or whatever, like the tropes you have in certain, how do they come about? So that's the story of narrative form. And it was this old white woman who's teaching it. She's like 65 or something, and she feels like she knows about blackness because she has adopted a black daughter, and then she's teaching this course, and then she's like, oh, magical realism. And she studied in like German art in studying like German art, and was naming me all these German painters. And then she kind of just zapped and went from like European German art to like Gabriel Garcia Marquez, and then we just talk about Gabriel Marquez, and went to like the other South American authors. And in my head, I'm like, okay, yeah, Benokri, The Famished Road is 1990. I can say that's pretty recent. That's pretty still dope magical realism. But like, does this woman know that Amos Tutuola and F.A. Fagunwa, Nigerian writers, were writing magical realism in the 1950s? Our lives is magical realism. Last burial, where Clebs Mohammed is holding his heart in his hand like that for the whole movie, and like the court people want to bury him, the church wants to bury him. Like, a lot of our stuff is like magical realism. You can't tell me that it's not, our continent did not inspire it, when I know that North African literature literally inspired European literature. People like the Egyptian novelist Naguib Mahfouz. So I wrote an essay about some of the stuff in that cause, and how like I didn't see myself in my biography reflected in that course. It was a very Eurocentric course from like Europe to North America, and I wrote about that stuff. I keep putting some of these perspectives I already mentioned here. Spoke about writers like F.A. Fagunwa and Amos Tutuola and Ben Okri, and this woman read it, and you could tell like her response over email was just vile and very vindictive, and she just got plain racist, to the point where I reported her and they even suspended her for like 1 semester and stuff. So it's, yeah, so that was, that was like a peak of bad for me. It was, especially in that course, the way she fought me. But the good thing was a lot of reform was done where the syllabus of that course was like, scrapped and done from scratch, to the point where now we have like Leslie Nkarima stories where they're just studied. Leslie Nkarima stories, the former Leslie Nkarima stories, they're studied. And then they have like Asian American writers, Latinx writers. So the course has been restructured where it's not Eurocentric anymore. Especially these things happened with me during the Black Lives Matter movement. So that course was done, and then other people were also, brought in to teach the course. So I was kind of, it was a painful experience for me, but at the tail end of it, something good came out of it from like the reform that was done with this course. So that was
thank you very much, Nkiacha. And I've been loving Delight's contributions. Delight is in your program, right? Ucheoma?
Yeah, we are in the same classroom.
Yeah, I met Delight just a few months ago at AWP. So curious, who else has stories related to but Iquo?
I appreciate everything that Nkiacha says, but I think, like he said, it depends on who it is that's handling what. In my program, for instance, I'm sure a lot of people kind of look forward to getting a twist different from the regular American stories when they have us in their programs. Because, for instance, if they didn't, I'm sure they wouldn't even have accepted me, because entries that I submitted along with my application had stories that had a hint of somebody going into the river with a calabash on her head and a leaf in her mouth and perform some ritual which was cleansing to prove that whatever. So if they didn't, I just feel like if the faculty likes things like, you have people on the faculty who appreciate speculative fiction, and I choose to use that expression because what's magic realism? In Africa, we write things that are horror, we write things that are urban legend, we write things that are magical, we write fantasy, we write lots of things because based on our spirituality and cosmology. But aside from that, for fiction, I remember once submitting in a poetry workshop, and I sent in this poem, and a lot of my classmates kept on saying, a lot of my classmates who are white, because I have a Black classmate who didn't ask for this. Maybe it's because she has Jamaican heritage as well. So a lot of people were saying, could you expand on this? Maybe expand on this line. And I'm thinking, if I want to write a story, I'll write a story. This is a poem. Like, get with it. But I felt pained. Like, why don't you get it? Why, if out of 10 people, if only 3 or 4 actually get it, or took the time to introspect and then move to the next line and get it, aha. So I felt like but I feel like if you listen to everything that is said about your craft, you would no longer recognize your writing. So that if you believe like me that everything that you write is given to you specially for a reason. I'm sorry. If you believe like me that when you have a piece of literature come to you, it is a duty that you're supposed to carry out. If you keep listening to everybody tell you how you should write it so that it sounds more American or more European, then you will lose the essence of that piece. So it's also about learning. For me, I think it's about learning where to draw the line. Okay, at what point is this going to serve both the work itself and the readers? Otherwise it's just, maybe it's not right meant for that audience. This is what I felt. But I know that whole thing, I think it's because they just do not understand the dynamic of writing, where I'm coming from. However, there are times when that dynamic is what actually strikes them. So I remember writing something and mentioning about, saying something about the umbilical, this thing is beyond umbilical. It's like, it's so like a hawk in flight, you're facing up, but your feet are in the ground. The same way that your umbilical is buried in the ground. So, they were so carried away with just that expression, and it felt like, okay, let's move on to other parts of the poem, please. But, it can happen both ways, I'm just saying. I think to counter it is to actually know what was I trying to do with this work? Mm-hmm. And you don't have to you don't have to accept everything that is said to you. about your poem or your story or a piece of nonfiction. This is how I deal with it, because I would hate myself if I lose what it is I'm writing.
I think that's the most important thing about workshop, knowing what feedback to actually, hold and which one to discard. Thank you, Iquo.
I think for me, the worst or the bad experience that I've had did not come from a white person. It was actually from another person of color. And I think a professor who said, oh, you're getting more published than your peers, or because you're getting sought after by agents because you're Black, and Black writers are now in vogue. And he says it to me several times, and because he's also a person of color, I found him like an ally, or I thought him an ally, but when he just kept on repeating that to me all the time, oh, you're getting this attention because you're Black. I also
Is
had
a Black professor or a different race?
No, it's a different race.
Okay.
Yeah, so he's trying.
In this context, I don't count them as people of color. Like they might as well be white. Sorry, go ahead.
So he just kept, and whenever he said this to me, it was almost like, oh, tete-a-tete, oh, let's talk about your craft. Let's talk about your writing. Tell me about your progress. And I'm opening up to him. And then the next moment, you're getting these things because you're Black. And so sometimes the oppression, quote and unquote, doesn't come from white people, because the white people in my program are those quote and unquote careful white people who know how to say the right things, who are quote and unquote woke. So I've never been offended by anything they've said so far, or they're very careful in how they package their words to a person of color. But it's just that, that professor that's just been almost like a pain in my ass. But yeah, I've learned how to avoid him. And sometimes the oppression too could also come from you, who is coming from a place, a culture that is very phobic in some things, and you don't know how much those things have filtered into your own language in class. So it's not like you come into the MFA program to censor yourself, but you also have to learn the language of the times, learn the politics of the time, so that you don't become the offender in class.
Thank you very much, Chama. That's very helpful. Dayo, did you have something?
Well, I feel like it's actually redemption time for Iowa. I had a mind-blowing experience with my professors so I took 3 of them. Tracy Morris was from my first semester. We had an amazing sync. Then Mark Levin was good. And then, of course, Elizabeth Willis, whom I eventually took twice because I loved working with her so much. But I had an experience outside of the program with the translation program. These were people of color. They were from, the professor was particularly from, and I had a particular experience that I could not go to class. So I sent them an email, and then it was like, oh yeah, I have to, I might, because I wasn't coming to class, so I have to like fail the class and stuff like that. And I sent in the doctor's report and all that. Anyways, all those aside, for the professors at the Iowa Writers Workshop, I had a great experience. And I think that one of the things that people who are looking to come into MFA programs should actually like get ready to do is to create a relationship with their professors. It's not like Nigeria where you cannot exactly like, just set up meetings with your professors and stuff like that. Nobody's going to beat you out of the office. Create relationships with them, send emails, say thank yous, be nice. I know we are very cultured people, but they also like appreciate the fact that we're cultured and they devote more attention to your work because you're very respectful. So I'm just gonna stop there because of our time.
Oh, thank you so much, Dayo. I still have a few questions left, but I would like us to move on to the Q&A. And I think the Q&A already asked some of the questions I have on my list. And so let me see. Okay, so so someone asked, what's the best thing to keep in mind when applying for MFAs? Like what factors do you want to look out for in deciding what schools to apply for? And we can have like 2 responses. So Nkiacha is offering to respond. Yeah, please go ahead, Nkiacha.
First thing, money. Tell them to give you money. The funding has to be complete. Seriously, you don't want to go into an MFA and you're paying tuition. The funding has to be good. From what I know, the school that gives the most money right now in the US is WashU, University of, I don't know, WashU, as it Washington University. It gives a lot of money, almost about 33,000, which is a ridiculous amount. And I know the Helen Zell Writers Program also gives quite a good amount of funding. So you want to be comfortable. You don't want to be entering a program where the money, it's like, tiny and you're struggling. Another thing to make sure your health insurance is covered, complete health insurance. Some of the MFAs, the health insurance is partial. Some of them you have to pay all yourself. Health insurance in America is very expensive. For an international student, I don't know, for the ones for international students, mostly it should be like $2,000 a year and it keeps going up every year. So make sure your health insurance is catered for. Some other things too, which I can just add. This is more like advice. Application fees, because if you're applying to 5 MFAs, $75, $80, $100, it's a lot. It goes up to like $500. There are application fee waivers for so many schools. If you don't ask, they'll not give you. Yeah, I know these are things where we're like respectful and everything. Americans, you always have to ask. There are resources that if you don't ask, they will not give you. So you always ask, hey, can I have an application fee waiver? Don't be ashamed, they'll give you. I even have a story where a friend of mine, they gave him, I think, a tuition for, I think he had to do like a bank statement of like $3,000. He's from Cameroon, he's French. And then he was like, as you see me like this, I don't have 5 francs to pay for that bank statement. They gave him all the money. So, also some schools, there's a TOEFL, test of English as a foreign language. And then there's the other one, I forgot. Yeah. Some of these schools, they require them. Again, if you don't ask, they will not give you. Some of them, like my school, my MFA, if you ask, they'll just, I think it's automatic now, that they waive the TOEFL. But some of these other schools, there's a TOEFL requirement, but if you ask, they'll waive it, and you don't want to be spending $200 on TOEFL. There's a whole translation degree thing to translate your degree. There was a school I didn't get in 2017, Pratt, and then they were like, hey, you have to translate your degree, and I checked the money, it was like $280. And I bullied these people. Americans fear you when you're assertive. I bullied this person. I was like, look, I attended the University of Boyan, Cameroon. It's an Anglo-Saxon school, very much like in schools in the UK. I'm not paying for this West thing. She was like, hey, okay, I've gone and checked. Then I checked with the graduate, whatever. It's cool. We checked. It's like those. It's really like the transcript, like those Anglo-Saxon schools in the UK, and you can apply with that. So, the resources and the things you can ask for. There's that. I mean, there's other things too. But like Kanyinsola hand is up, and I mean we can also add that with other questions.
Thank you very much. Iquo, you had something to say, right?
Yeah, so I was going to say, when Nkiacha mentioned fee waivers, just bear in mind, most of the schools give waivers early on in the application process. So if you wait too close to the end of the application, you would have lost the chance to get a waiver. So look out in time, and then you can ask questions. You can always email the coordinator of the program even before you apply. Try your luck. You might just get it. So yeah, in my experience, I find that schools that give teaching assistantships, the teaching assistantship usually often means the scholarship is covered because you'll be working for the school. I don't mind the exchange. I don't mind the exchange. I give you something, you give me something back. That's fine. Otherwise, yeah, you might just get half funding, and then you start having to looking for grants. And if you're going to be doing in an MFA program, you need to have time to write. And if you're busy working, trying to make up your fees, that'll be a problem. And another thing I think you should look out for is your faculty on each school you're going to. Check up who the faculty is. What do they write? What do they like? So if, for instance, you write fantastic fantasy, or magic realism, and you don't have anybody on that faculty that appreciates that, when they are going through your application and you're your entries, your sample writing has a lot of what's it called, fantasy elements, they might not appreciate it and you will not get in. It's not like, and if this happens to you once, twice, thrice, you miss out, you feel like maybe you might begin to feel like there's something wrong with your writing. It's not that. It might just be that the faculty doesn't appreciate what it is you write. So yeah, then you have to pay attention to your application. I mean, I know that everybody is supposed to read whatever school they're applying to, read what the school wants. Do not think it's one generic application you will send to every school. You have to read properly. What does this school want? What are they leaning toward? And then you tweak your application to fit that school. Because there are schools, like my school, for instance, I know 2 people who told me last year that they applied and then within a week of applying, they got a rejection. And I told them, oh, that means there's something wrong with your application. The application hasn't reached the department, much less the creative writing director. It hasn't reached, it's from the graduate school that they begin to screen it out. You want to be careful that you do what you're expected to do. Whatever format you're expected to send anything, follow it. Whatever, if there's a page count to say your, personal statement, follow it. There's a word count, follow it. If there are things you need to do it so that you don't get kicked out before you even reach the point where people are sitting down to say, okay, how many applications do we get for the MFA program? Let's review the stories or the poems people submitted. Yeah, let me leave it at that.
Thank you, Iquo. So we have another question. I've been trying to answer some of the questions myself, but here we have, someone says they don't have a literary career, and I imagine they haven't published that much, and they are wondering, do they have a good shot at getting into an MFA? Do they need to, have like a portfolio, something that would look maybe impressive or something? So what do you guys think? Okay, we have Ucheoma.
When they say a literary career, perhaps I'm thinking maybe they didn't study anything literature related in their undergrad. For me, I studied microbiology and I got into a program. I think the most important thing in your application process is your application material. Most people in my program have never published anything before, not even a short story, and they just submitted what they had and it was good enough for the application committee and they got accepted. So the most important thing is that you submit the best work that you've ever written at the time, and who knows, you could get accepted.
I'd also like to add that if there are programs that accept people with HND, I have an HND. In fact, I almost got into an MFA program with an ND. So, I mean, there's nothing that's actually like all you have to do is to actually just send emails to the graduate school to ask if they accept it. And that's how you actually create your shortlist. And also, yeah, like Ucheoma, I studied human nutrition and dietetics, and it's very possible for you, to be honest.
May I just add that the worst you will suffer is imposter syndrome, just in case you happen to be in the class with people who studied English or things like that. But I didn't study English. I did human resource management.
They don't even have that.
And I've been writing since, I don't know how, I mean, it doesn't make any difference. What's most important is your writing sample. Believe it or not. It helps if you've been published, because hopefully that means that you've sent your work somewhere and somebody has rejected it or has sent it back to you to say, rework this or do this. Yes, that helps, I agree. But the most important thing is that writing sample. How good is it? And does it strike a chord with those who are going to evaluate your writing, which is the faculty at the end of the day?
Yeah, same with me. I have a degree in education and biology, and I think that makes it plain on the board that all of us didn't study English. And actually, I think if you're coming from a non-English perspective, it kind of gives a spice to your writing because you study something different. And then for someone like me, I worked at an airport. I think I'm the only writer from the continent who worked at an airport, so I can able to write like aviation narratives. It also gives a different spice. So the non-Englishness can actually end up being you know, a bonus for you for your writing, because you're coming from like, you know.
Thank you so much, guys. So the next question we have here is, how do you navigate challenges finding post-graduation fellowships and opportunities as an international student?
The people who have finished MFA should.
Yeah, so we have Nkiacha and Adedayo. Please tell us, what was the process of finding your fellowship and, you know, getting the job? What was it like?
Yeah, Nkiacha is obviously more experienced, so let's
Okay, well, for me, by the time I didn't want to do a PhD right off the bat after my MFA, so I wanted to have a you know, post MFA residencies, and what Adedayo got in the Wallace Techner Fellowship. It's actually like one of the most prestigious in the US. 2 years, you get funding, you write. So if you apply for an MFA, there's that you can apply to. The acceptance rate is like 0.5%. So it has to be like a wide shot. So there's a couple of others too. There's again, you might need your pens for this. So there's a post MFA residency, and these are not like really post MFA residencies. You can get in even from like Nigeria. You can actually be your pathway into the MFA. So there's one in Provincetown. So just Google the residency in Provincetown. That's 7 months. You don't need an MFA for that. You can even get in from the continent. There's one in there's a Steinberg writing fellowship at San Jose University in California, Steinberg Fellowship. And then there is also there's one in Michigan. I forgot the name of that one. It's in Michigan. Jimmer Brinkley, he won that one. So if you Google Jimmer Brinkley, he teaches at Iowa, so Adedayo knows him. If you Google Jimmer Brinkley's biography, he won the Stegner, he won that one. It's Michigan. That pays well. It's about 40,000. So the post MFA residencies that you can get. And then of course there's the Yado. I think Ucheoma can speak to that. There is so there are like 5-week residencies where you can write. Yado, McDowell, Caleb Ajinomo, who attended my program, got into that one. There's the Adomai International Residency. It's the only international residency in the US. It's in New York. I attended that. I heard from Ucheoma's biography that she also attended that. It's a really cool residency. There are about 100 residencies in the US. So that's that for, you know, longer residencies and the shorter ones. And now for the other residencies, which are kind of attached to your MFA program where you studied. So if you're also, that's another point which you want to consider if you're applying for an MFA. There are a couple of them where, you know, there's a residency that's only like an in-house residency, only for the graduating cohort. The graduating cohort, you apply, they choose 1 or 2 writers, they get in. I think the Helizeo Writers Program has that. My program also has that. So there's a Smithville residency. So when you finish or you complete your MFA at Texas State, you can apply for the Smithville residency, and then you choose one. I just didn't choose to apply to the Smithville residency because it's like a small Texan town, and I'm scared of all these racist comebacks in that place. So there's that. And then also there's teaching. There are also a couple of MFA residency MFAs where after that, like my program, if you apply, there's a spot. Many of these Americans don't want to do it, or you apply and then you get in. So you might also want to check out MFAs that have teaching gigs attached to them. For some it's 1 year, for some it's 2 years. I already 2 hands up, so I'll shut up for now.
Thank you so much, Nkiacha. Dayo.
Yeah, I would be more practical. I think that it's actually like very important for you to, or maybe not stress yourself that much, but as someone who's actually like always bothered about what I want to do next, I started thinking about what I'm going to apply for, so that what I'm going to do after my MFA program, right? So you want to like make a list of all of these places that Nkiacha has actually like mentioned. And more importantly, I think that I see Ife saying that the fellowships are very competitive. The only places that you might never get into are the places that you've never applied to, right? I never thought that I would actually like get into luckily for me, I actually got into multiple fellowships this year. Yeah, I got into multiple. I got into multiple this year, and then because it is stagnant for crying out loud. Although most of them are actually like offering really good money, right? But because it is stagnant, and what the same thing that Iowa does is that they actually like, it just looks really great on your resume. Stagnant also looks really good on your resume, but away from that, create a list, budget money for these applications. Some of them actually offers, some of them offer what's it called? Fee waivers, right? And what else? Yes, if you think that you don't want to like probably do that, most of these MFA programs offer you to teach an extra year before, so that you have more time to actually like probably write or do something. It just cushions the effect of the stress of having to think about what next to do. But I mean, we're always down to actually talk about this as a larger conversation.
Also, you can apply for a PhD in creative writing. If you want to stay in America, it gives you 4, 5 plus more years. The couple of PhDs in creative writing you can do. So,
yeah, actually, PhDs is luckily for me, I got into PhDs. So that's actually
that's not humble anymore.
That's actually telling you that you have to like be proactive about your future. You have to like
try and be humble. Thank you.
I'm just like it's not. You went to Iowa does not count for shit. You have to like apply for things. That's what I'm saying. Like apply. You have to apply. That's it. Anyways, yes. I'm always humble, please.
Yeah, you have to also look out before you apply. You have to do a lot of research and find out what's available and what interests you. Yeah.
Thank you, guys. So we have a question about visa. So someone says, with the restriction on visa and visa interview timing, how easy is it for someone aiming to participate, aiming to go for an MFA? So I guess the question just is, for you guys generally, what was the visa process like? What do you think you did that made it easier? And if you were rejected once, what happened? What led to that? Ucheoma.
What made it easy for me was joining all those WhatsApp groups where there's Abuja Embassy, for those in Nigeria, Lagos Embassy, there's a lot of mock interviews that happened. So going at it with community is a lot better than just doing it on your own. So there's a lot of rehearsals that happen. And then people who got their visas approved would tell you, oh, this is what to expect and this is what not to expect. But the most important thing is just doing it in community. It's never something you can figure out on your own. It's best to do it with people. So I think that was very crucial for me when I was applying for my own visas.
Thank you, Ucheoma. Who else? Nkiacha, do you have something?
Oh, Iquo has something.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I mean, I was gonna say, I know somebody who's coming from Nigeria this year. So obviously, even though the visa, the wait is longer now, it means that it's still possible to get in when you use emergency application. And I know that not every student who applies, who uses emergency application option with the visa application gets in. But it's still a good possibility. I had a really difficult so when my mates they've already gotten their I-20 and were applying for visas, I was still waiting for Nigerian immigration to release my passport. It was like village people were on me, even though nobody knew I was going anywhere. But yeah, by the time my passport now came, I had to now wait a very long time to get my I-20 from school before I could now start the visa application. Yeah, at a point I actually thought I was going to miss the admission that year. But immediately I applied, and the date. So when I applied, the date available was February the next year, and my school doesn't take. There's no MFA admission for the spring semester that starts in January. And when I asked, what if I don't get my visa in time? Nobody responded. But yeah, so I joined those. I didn't realize before then that there was a whole community of WhatsApp groups and Telegram groups checking for dates, doing what's it called, mock interview sessions. So people were actually cramming what to say. But hey, I mean, the mock sessions work to build your confidence. I will tell you that. However, if you're like me, and then whatever it is that they did in the mock, you now get to the video and the visa officer asks you something totally different. Then if you did not have the confidence built up, you would have a problem. Because the man he was looking at my, my form on the system. And then I was waiting for him to ask me stuff. And I'm like, okay, I'll sound very professional. He just turned and said to me, okay, what do you do for work? At the moment. And then I realized, okay, what do I do? I started telling him what I do. I work as a scriptwriter, translator, he didn't seem like he was even listening to me, but that's beside the point. The thing is that when you apply as a student, you have a better chance if you use the emergency application option. You just have to be careful that the dates that you're applying for the emergency application is within a certain number of, I think it is, it's best to use the emergency application if you're 30 days away from your school resumption dates, right? So if you follow that, then you attach everything you need to the application. You show that you've paid for your service, you show add your I-20. If there's anything, maybe you're invited for a teaching practicum or whatever, and the date is approaching, you add that as well, just to say that, hey, I'm valid, can you just give me a chance? That's just what I wanted to say. You can add that to it so that to help the visa application. But there are students who are coming from Africa, even this time around. So it's still possible. Try.
Thank you. Thank you so much, guys. I've tried to answer most of the Q&A, so I don't bother you with it. But another question I have is, Nkiacha wants to go. Okay, please.
Yeah. Thanks for that. I'll just make this very quick because I know you have another question. Yeah, Iquo already mentioned expedited appointment. If you give like Nigeria is crazy because like you can get like for next year, so you can get an expedited appointment. In Cameroon, it's relatively easier, and I mean this is for like non-Nigerian participants on the chat. Like Cameroon is relatively easy. My interview date was like 1 week after school started, and then I asked for August 8th, and then they gave me July 28th, which was even, and I was like, oh yeah, but that's Cameroon. Cameroon does expedited because like we only like 25 million, it's predominantly francophone, not many anglophones are traveling to the US, so it's expedited. You can get it relatively quickly. I have a friend right now, he's in the Delima, where school starting next month. He got into an MFA. He applied for the expedited. They have not approved it. I think his interview is like May 2024. So worst case scenario, and most MFAs do this. My MFA did this, especially during the pandemic. You can defer. So if you're supposed to start in like August 2023, and then you have visa issues or whatever the appointment dates, you can defer to like January spring session, or you can even defer up to a year into the future. So if you're supposed to go in August 23, and then you can push it to like August 2024. Most of these schools, they know about our visa wahalas, so they understand. So they understand that. On another questions, well, Kanyinsola, he mentioned again, I don't like, no, it's not like self-promotion or anything. In my guidance piece, which I wrote, Creative Nonfiction, I actually did like a catalog of like 3 different visa interviews with most of the questions. So if you go there, you find like a good like 60-70% of the questions that they ask, even though sometimes these questions change, and these people can ask like the most ridiculous questions. I was listening to Isi Osundu's book launch for his new novel, and he was telling a hilarious story about like the most ridiculous thing he was asked to do at a visa interview. So when he said he was going to do an MFA, and this is somebody who won the Kane Prize before, he published a book which was on Oprah's book club, and he was going to do an MFA after that success, maybe because he just do it. And then he was saying, he said the consular officer looked at him and was like, oh, you're a story writer. He's like, yeah. He gave him a paper and it's like, write a short story right now. And Isi Osundu said, are you joking? It was like, no, write a short story. I'm serious. And Isi Osundu said, I stood there and I looked at him and I looked at it and I held Ben and I had and people were laughing like crazy. And then he came back after like 5 minutes, like, say, I cannot even write a paragraph. I don't know how I got the visa, but it's, though sometimes too, they will kick off the script from what you have learned from like the WhatsApp groups and whatever, because they know that you're studying things, and they'll just ask you something right off the bat. Sometimes you may even seem ridiculous.
Thank you, Kasia. The question I was going to ask next is about teaching. People are asking about teaching. Like, what's your experience? Not just teaching. Because you're not teaching in your country. You're here teaching students who have a different accent, who have a different cultural experience. And I imagine some of them are speaking with someone who is not American for the first time. So, like standing in front of these students who are mostly white, mostly American, and you have to be like the instructor to them. What was it like for you guys?
Well, I can start. Well, I thought poetry workshops at the Iowa Writers Workshop, and that was fine. Of course, you have a set of students with different backgrounds, with different upbringing. Some are very rude, some are very respectful, some are very racist, some are. It's just wild. Like there's no guide. There's no guide that can actually be sufficient for this is how you deal with students with diverse backgrounds, right? But that's why you have your student office as your you can always reach out to them when you have an issue. I particularly had a crazy student last semester. It's crazy because this student actually was not reading materials, would come to class and say the weirdest shit. He was making drug jokes. He was very racist. And then he was the one that was actually writing multiple emails to the Dean of Student Affairs to say that if I was being considered for a job, they should never consider it. They should actually take it off their mind. I saw the email. I was like, wait, what? And it was simply because I asked this guy that, oh, you've not been doing your assignments. You've not been, so I need your assignment I need you to turn your assignment over today. If you're not, then I'm not sure if you would actually be, I don't know about your grades, right? And then this student actually felt really, really challenged. And then it was like, oh, he thinks this class is a waste of his time. Can you imagine that? They have the audacity, because of course you are literally like the fact that they are white and you're black, they feel like they can actually most of them actually feel like they can actually get a pass at you and all of that. But be very smart in your dealings. It's just be human, to be honest. That's the actual truth. I'll stop there.
Thank you, Dara. Ucheoma, you wanted to say something, right?
Sorry about your experience though. I've not had a bad teaching experience, and of course I was very petrified about it because I have a very quiet disposition. So teaching really terrified me. But I think the most important thing is to know that you're the person that you have more power, that the power dynamics in the classroom is actually in your favor as a teacher. So you can ride off that until you become more confident. And what else? Another thing that has helped me in teaching is actually dressing correctly. Not like fashion has always been something I lean into for superpowers. So that's that really helped me in walking to the class and just commanding their attention. And the best thing you can do as a teacher is to prepare ahead of time. If you come prepared, you would have like 90% success in class. Of course, there are days that go very badly. There are days the students are not understanding you, or even sometimes your accents could stand in the way, but there's nothing you can do about it. The school considered you trustworthy to teach, so you just have to show up. So yeah, do it once, do it twice, and before you know it, you get used to it.
Thank you very much, guys. Just to make a quick comment about what everyone has said so far. I know Ucheoma said something about fashion and how you present yourself. Dara, could you lower your hand? How you present yourself? And I have in my wardrobe, I have a section that's just for my teaching. Like what I wear to teach, you won't see me wear it anywhere else. And that's of course partly because of white privilege, because I have my classmates who I likely won't even go to class with this hair. I have white classmates who have like 5 different hairstyles, the hair colors, and then they wear, whatever they wear to class, and then nothing happens. But you're already worried about being taken seriously and being respected. So you're like, oh, as this black person, as someone with an African accent, I have to, present myself in a very specific way so that just to get a crumb of, respect from these people. So that's something you think about. I know it sounds apocalyptic, but it's just one of those prices you have to pay, right? And of course, you don't think about being assertive while also being human, because many of them want to feel like they can, take advantage of you, and you. Sometimes I hear of African students who are like, oh, I want to be nice to them so they can feel comfortable around me. But you also don't want to be a pushover, right? You want to make them know that you won't let your other professors wouldn't let you do this. So you're not doing this to me either. And you've also talked about, Nkiacha's essay, Google Nkiacha, like I said already to someone, and you find the essay. Ucheoma also wrote a beautiful essay, which I was hoping to talk more about, but, we've gone way beyond the schedule. But if you Google Ucheoma's name and go to her Medium, I know someone put it in the link in the chat, right? You can find a very wonderful essay that talks about Ucheoma's, MFA experience from, from the process of applying to actually being there, right? So please go ahead and read on it. And I see that some panelists are responding to some of your questions in the chat. I just want to thank everyone for being here. The panelists, these were my first choice. Everyone here was my first choice. I had the list and I was really prepared for people to say, no, I don't think I'll have the time. But, they're all like, yes, let's do it, without, they're not getting any sort of payment from me, and they're all willing to do this for free. So I would really, really like to thank you guys for not just making the time, but for also contributing to this, because this is invaluable experience. This is something I wish I had when I was applying to MFA programs, and I'm just so glad that hundreds of people were able to get out of this. And yeah, so someone put Ucheoma's essay again in the chat, so please check that. That's very, very important. Let's give Ucheoma more traffic on that medium. But it's very helpful. Thank you so much for being here. And I want to thank everyone who signed up. I want to thank those who contributed to the chat. You made it very lively. Thank you so much. And to my SprinNG team, thank you so much. To Ibuku, to Onyidamola, thank you so much for.
Thank you for joining. Visit our website, apply if you're interested in the SprinNG Advantage Program, and we look forward to working with you further. Take care of yourselves and enjoy the rest of the day. Bye-bye.